I've researched you. I know you were out of town, what, 74 days out of the year last year? I know that you have a... Hang on.
You know, I knew you would do this.
Can I finish?
This is classic.
All right. Gentlemen, let's... Okay, right now, we're going to freeze. I want to take a break. I do not want this to go any more personal. I want you to ask a damn question about Iraq, and I want you to answer it.
I'm going to answer his question.
Get to the point, ask the question, find the bottom line, put it out there, and then you respond.
I was asking that question. He divides everybody, liberals, conservatives.
Now, the question, please, Mr. Mayor.
Let me give the background. Brent Scowcroft. Do you consider him a bleeding heart liberal? He was the national security advisor under Gerald Ford and then the first President Bush. He wrote an opinion in the Wall Street Journal before our invasion of Iraq, and the point that he made, he was so prescient. He had it absolutely right. Mr. Hannity, do you disagree with Brent Scowcroft when he said to attack Iraq, which had nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks on this country, to attack Iraq was diverting our efforts in our war against terror, and that's exactly what we have seen happen now.
Is there a question?
Do you agree with... Do you disagree with Rogers?
Here's my answer. You know, and this is part of... I was only saying that I've researched everything you said. Everything you said here tonight, in the last 2 months, you've said the exact same thing 400 times as you parade around the country. And the point is, you have never, ever... I showed tape of all of your liberal friends. I showed tape tonight of the guy that you voted for president making the exact same case as George W. Bush. In all my research of you, I know your employees want you to get anger management help. You never once have
Now. Ladies and gentlemen, the question, Mr. Hannity, is to respond to the statement posed by the mayor regarding the statement made by Mr. Scowcroft.
And here's my point. You're bringing... This is the problem with everything that you're saying, including Brent Scowcroft. You are... Help us out.
Gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
This is, ladies and gentlemen, cherry-picking selective moral outrage. It is intellectually dishonest. If you are going to be critical of the president for the WMD argument, or the connection to Al-Qaeda argument, or the yellow cake argument, or the Niger argument, or any of the things, I've read your speech 10 times, you equally must be critical and intellectually honest. You should say tonight that John Kerry, who made the same case, Hillary Clinton, who made the same case, you should say tonight that they too must go.
How long does it go on?
Time has expired. We now change the opportunity. Mr. Hannity will question Mayor Anderson. The time limit is 15 minutes.
I'm going to stay right on the point I was at. I want to know, this is a tough crowd. Here's a very simple question, no build-up. We saw a video tonight of the guy that you voted for president, and I read you the quotes.
I think you're wrong. You don't know who I voted for president.
Wait a minute. I've got a picture of you in your car with a John Kerry bumper sticker on the back.
Wrong.
That wasn't you in the car.
Never happened.
If you did not, nobody knows. Did you not support John Kerry? You didn't support John Kerry?
I did not support John Kerry.
Who did you vote for?
Because I voted for the Green Party candidate, Ralph Nader.
Okay. I'll stand on. I will graciously concede the point. He voted for the Green Party, but it doesn't.
Have a question?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the question. Here we come.
Here's my question. But in all my research of you, Mr. Mayor, you focus on one person, George Bush. I have never heard on the issues of weapons of mass destruction. You have never, in any press I have seen, asked for John Kerry to resign, Hillary Clinton to resign. You admire Joe Biden, you've said in interviews. You've said you admired the former Klansman Robert Byrd. why won't you, and here's my question, why won't you show intellectual honesty, and if you're going to demand that George Bush be removed from office, what about some of your Democratic friends who made the same arguments?
Okay. Do I get a chance to respond? As everybody here probably knows, and you say you've read my speeches, but apparently you haven't gotten through to the end, I think that our Congress is absolutely complicit. Those who voted for this resolution were wrong. And let me tell you, there was a national intelligence...
Should he resign? I asked, should he resign?
We're in response time, so let's let Mr. Mayor Anderson finish the response.
There was a national intelligence estimate, the October 1st, 2002 National Intelligence Estimate, where the intelligence agency within the State Department, the DOE, said there's nothing to this aluminum tubes claim, where the Bureau of Intelligence and Research said there was that it was highly dubious that Saddam Hussein was buying uranium. And this is getting to the answer. That was provided to Congress. They could have gone into a secure room and read it, and by Senator Graham's report, there were about 6 senators that ever went in and read it, and I think every single senator that voted for that resolution needs to be asked 2 questions. Did you read the National Intelligence Estimate? And if not, why in the world not, with what was at stake? And if you read it, how could you have voted for that resolution?
Before we go to the next question and answer, this is the last call for audience questions. Take a look at one of the bright young students walking around in red and pass your question to them. Mr. Hannity, your time for a question.
You didn't answer my question, Mr. Mayor.
I think I did.
And let me give you the question. Can I finish the question? Thank you.
I thought you did.
You are demanding the impeachment, the removal from office of George W. Bush, and you made a case tonight about the issues of weapons of mass destruction and all the things you laid out here tonight. John Kerry has made that case. Hillary Clinton has made that case. Joe Biden has made that case. I have a very simple question. Will you tonight show intellectual honesty and say they should be removed from office?
I won't say they should be removed from office. They need to be held accountable. Congress as a whole has been complicit. No. Let me finish the answer. This was the President of the United States getting up time after time after time, representing to you and to me that Saddam Hussein was building up a nuclear capability when his own national intelligence estimates said just the opposite. When he was telling us that he had his weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons. The chief UN inspector, when they were there after the first Gulf War, said they had been destroyed. He is not a threat. That was the information that our president had, and he was selling us a bill of goods that has created tremendous tragedy for our world.
Mr. Hannity, your next question.
Mr. Mayor, as part of your I Hate Bush protest tour around the country, as a part-time mayor, full-time protester, you have protested with a woman by the name of Cindy Sheehan, and I met her. I've interviewed her. I feel very sorry for her. She lost her son. Her son is a hero. This isn't about politics. But I do question your decision to protest with her for this reason. She has said about our country that America is not worth dying for. She has said George Bush is the biggest terrorist in the world. Bush is 10 times a bigger terrorist than bin Laden. She's compared our president to Adolf Hitler.
Oh.
She called the president a lying, filthy bastard. Do you have an obligation as the mayor and representative of a city not to associate with people that use such incendiary language against our president?
You know, Mr. Hannity, I've heard incendiary language from you, and I'm pleased to be here on the stage to discuss these issues. I don't agree with those statements by Cindy Sheehan, but when she talks about her son Casey, it brings tears to your eyes. I was recently with her and a number of other parents, including the Arredondos, a Hispanic couple. Their son was just killed in Iraq, and about 2 or 3 months ago, the father was sworn in as a citizen of the United States. It brings you to tears to see him standing there holding his son's boots, his dog tags, raising his hand and say, I swore to uphold the Constitution, and that's why I'm here today, because our president needs to be held to account, and my son shouldn't have died.
All right. Mr. Hannity.
It doesn't matter what you ask him, he goes back to the same talking point. I'll try again. Let me ask you this. You oppose the Patriot Act, as I understand it. Is that true, sir? You oppose the NSA surveillance program? You've been critical of them? You support the idea of surrender?
Well, if we're going to ask a question, let me at least give him the decency of a response.
No, I know he just said all those things. There's nothing he's disagreeing with. You support... He supports surrender.
If there's a question mark at the end, I'm going to get an answer in here. So let's go back to the Patriot Act.
This will be my last question. This is getting out of this. I have one last question, then we'll let the audience have it. But I would like you to say this, because I listened to you tonight. You never talked a lot about the specific success of our troops. And I just want to ask you, because the Democrats oppose the Patriot Act, NSA surveillance, Democrats want to surrender and wave the white flag in Iraq, and they call the president, you called the president a war criminal, those are your words. I want you to name 5 specific positive solutions that you could propose. The 9/11 Commission says that it's only a matter of when, not if, they're going to attack us. 5 specific things that you would propose to keep us safe from the next terror attack.
Well, first of all, let's get our resources back into Afghanistan and beat back the Taliban, as we should have done from the very beginning. As Brent Scowcroft made very clear, diverting our troops, our resources out of Afghanistan was aiding the terrorists. Now, as the National Intelligence Council has found, by us being in Iraq, we've been like a magnet to Al-Qaeda, where they didn't have a presence before, they do now, and every single day we're there as an occupying force. As an occupying force, we're creating more hatred, resentment, terrorism. So the second thing is, we get out of Iraq.
Just a minute.
We get out of Iraq as an occupying force. We bring the nations together in the Arab League. We have a president who won't even talk to Syria and Iran, the neighboring countries. We need to deal with them. We need to deal with the United Nations and put in peacekeeping troops who are not seen as a United States occupying force. Now, bin Laden, why did he declare war against the United States? I highly recommend you read the book, Looming Tower, by Lawrence Wright. He shows there how bin Laden, because the United States breached our agreement to get our troops, our bases out of Saudi Arabia after the first Gulf War. After the first Gulf War, he saw that as a Jewish and Christian occupation, Muslim Holy Land. That's when he declared war against the United States. We've made it 10 times as bad by being that occupying force.
Let me put us on pause for a second.
I want to give the mayor another opportunity, because beyond going to Afghanistan, I want the 9/11 Commission report says it's a matter of when, not if. I want 4 specific things in this country you support to keep us safer.
Listen, there's this argument that us staying in Iraq somehow keeps them from bringing the fighting to us. This is a sectarian conflict that we opened up by invading and occupying that country. Our own Department of Defense says that somewhere around 4% of the insurgents are members of Al-Qaeda. If they're going to attack our country, we're just egging them on by being the occupying force. The United States of America can't do that. Now, 3, let me offer. We stop kidnapping, disappearing, and torturing people and motivating these people to attack the United States.
Our time has expired, and there's little more that I can do except move on to the next portion of this program, which is going to be fueled by your questions. Can I bring the house lights up a little bit more? I want to look at you. You've been so good. Thanks. The first question is actually addressed to me. Mr. Johnson, no, apparently I do not have a lick of sense.
Hey, Ken, I have a question for Ken. What were you thinking when you accepted this?
I do have a first question, and this question now here, gentlemen, you will each respond in a 1-minute fashion to these questions. These come from the folks out there. Joe from Far West. Mayor Anderson, you'll respond first. 1 minute. In attacking each other, have either of you considered your impact on the ideological middle ground of America?
I think that
1 minute
is a very good point. And I came in here tonight, I absolutely swore, I don't even want to say his name because this isn't about Sean Hannity or Rocky Anderson. This isn't even about liberals, conservatives, Republicans, or Democrats. You know, we've got to hold everybody accountable. And as Middle America comes together and we recognize we have the same basic fundamental American values, we can come together as a nation. Let's stop the incivility, the name-calling, the labeling of people. Come together, all of us, and find solutions to these problems.
Well, I find it very lacking in credibility, Mr. Mayor, because you're the one that called our president a war criminal. You're the one that called me a liar and other things. You're the one that attacked my staff unfairly. But putting all that aside, I will say this. I don't care what he says about me or anybody. I do care about this. If I could please finish. I do care about the reckless language of telling our troops they've lost when they're fighting a war the same guy sent them to fight. I do care about, you know, people like John Murtha and the things that he has said about our troops, that they're killing women and well, John Kerry said we're killing women and children in the dark of night, and they're terrorizing women and children in Iraq. I do care when John Murtha says that our troops are guilty of murder in cold blood when they weren't even tried or presented any evidence. I am concerned about the hypocrisy of the left, where George Bush was wrong on WMDs, but all their liberal friends get a pass. It's nice in theory to say that the language has gotten coarsened, but I would argue what has happened and the things that have been said about this president on a regular basis as he leads our men and women in harm's way is disgraceful.
Next question is from Deirdre of Holiday. What does it actually mean when you say support our troops? Mr. Hannity, you have the first 1 minute opportunity. Support our troops.
You know, I will tell you, I'll answer it by saying what it doesn't mean to prove what it does mean. You don't support our troops if you don't support our troops if you send them into war, the Iraq War resolution, and then you come up with a plan, a strategy that they describe as slow bleed, as John Murtha said, and they won't have the equipment. How do you say that about men and women you send into harm's way? It means support the troops. We've been waiting 100 days for the Democrats with this authorization bill to provide the armor, bullets, equipment, and supplies. And Democrats knew the president would veto this timetable because it's unconstitutional, but yet they put it in anyway to score cheap political points. It doesn't support our troops, Ken, when Chuck Schumer is bragging and Harry Reid said, oh, look what Chuck Schumer showed me. We're gonna win seats because of this Iraq war. It doesn't support the troops when Rocky Anderson is parading around the country calling our president a war criminal when he's trying to conduct a war against an enemy that wants to destroy us. That's not supporting the troops.
Next time. Mayor Anderson, you have 1 minute to respond. What does it mean to you to support our troops?
Supporting our troops is getting them out of Iraq and making certain that we utilize our troops, our precious military resources, where we're actually going to be able to fight against the war on terror. Just as Brent Scowcroft said, we need to go after Osama bin Laden. Now, having kept that in focus and destroying the al-Qaeda network would have not only supported the troops, it would have supported every single one of us. It would also support our troops if when they give so much and put everything on the line along with their families, if when they come back, they get decent veterans benefits and health care.
Next question comes from Marcus in Centerville. What is success in Iraq? How would you define success in Iraq? Mayor Anderson, first 1 minute response.
Well, I think, unfortunately, as you look back in time, although we had supported Saddam Hussein during his genocide against the Kurds and during that horrible period, success in Iraq was when we had him basically hogtied, when we had a no-fly zone protecting the Kurdish territory, and the UN weapons inspectors had determined up to that point that there was full cooperation by the Iraqi government and that there was no evidence of weapons of mass destruction. Success, just imagine, please. And this is why I was so opposed to it. I would have favored intervention during the genocide. I favored the first Gulf War intervention. I'm not an appeaser when it comes to that kind of thing. But when I read that Scott Ritter, the UN chief weapons inspector, said they were totally disarmed after the first Gulf War, they hadn't rearmed. When I read that the UN weapons inspectors, because of the pressure that was brought to bear on Saddam Hussein, that they didn't find weapons of mass destruction. Imagine if we had allowed that process to continue.
Mr. Hannity, to you, help us define success in Iraq.
I'll make it very succinct. Failure would be to wave the white flag and leave and allow al-Qaeda and Iran to move in. Success, yes ma'am, nice to see you, you're a great American. Success is very simply leaving at the point. Okay.
Just a minute, please.
Success very simply will be to leave when and only when, after this long investment, and it's hard and it's difficult and it's tough, when the Iraqis are able to sustain themselves militarily and protect themselves against the insurgency.
Our next question. Mr. Hannity, our next question comes from Jennifer in Roy, and she states, mistakes have been made. We cannot change history. Let's put you in the Oval Office for 1 day. What would you do, one thing right now, if you were in the president's chair and the policy on Iraq?
To change the policy on Iraq?
No, she's just saying, what would you do? One thing if you were in the Oval Office, if you were the chief executive, what one thing would you do right now relating to Iraq?
I would have to very simply say that if we don't win this war in Iraq, and my commitment on my day...
Just a minute. Let's give him an opportunity.
If we don't win this war in Iraq, we will face consequences for decades to come. I would do everything that I could do, financially, support-wise, to make sure that we continue to support the troops and give them the equipment that they need right now, the equipment that has been denied to them now 100 days. If I had one thing to do right now, today, if I was in that office, I would make sure that I would take every bit of money I had and make sure those troops had it, because the Democrats have been denying it for so long. That's my answer.
Mayor Anderson, we're going to put you in the Oval Office.
And this is the magic wand question, right? I mean, if we can do anything.
Magic wand.
Okay. I would focus all of our energies on where we should have been, and that is defeating once and for all the Al-Qaeda network and getting the United States to the point where we've got the alternative energy resources so we will never, ever, ever be dependent on foreign oil again, because that is why we're in Iraq.
We have time for 2 more questions. We only have time for 2 more questions. The first question comes from Brandon of Orem. Who do you like for president in 08? Well, we've been talking about leadership, right? They've got fixed opinions, right? They know what's right and wrong, right? Why not sound them out on who they want in 08? Brandon, I think it's a great question.
Well, I'm here to
Mayor
announce... No, I'm just kidding. You know who I like? I like Bill Richardson. This man gets it. As governor of New Mexico, he has been out there combating global warming, finding a way for a better energy policy. He served as ambassador to the United Nations. He respects international law and United Nations processes, and he was also secretary of the Department of Energy. He's got the experience. I think he's a great guy. Right now, I'm liking Bill Richardson a lot.
And Mr. Hannity?
I just want to make sure one thing on this question. Just one. I don't want any of you to wake up the morning after Election Day next year, in 2008, and tune into KSL or Fox and Friends.
Or KUED, of course.
And I don't ever want you to hear that she has been elected. Ever. So my answer...
Well, that's about 45 seconds.
Any Republican but her. There you go.
Final question of the night comes from Jeff in Logan. Jeff, are you still with us? Mr. Hannity, Mr. Anderson, you'll both have the 1-minute opportunity. Mr. Hannity first. What do you feel is the greatest threat to American values and our way of life?
The answer is...
I'll repeat the question to you.
You can repeat it. Go ahead if you want.
What do you feel is the greatest threat to our American values and our way of life?
It is everything that we have talked about tonight. I mean, I know this is a little contentious at times, and I'm glad that you're all enthusiastic, but I will tell you this. This enemy that hit us on 9/11, they're plotting, planning, scheming, hoping, praying in their brainwashed, lobotomized state of mind. They think God will reward them with virgins, 72. 72. Oh, sorry. They believe that. They see nothing wrong with strapping bombs on their own children. If we ever get to the point where nuclear technology and terrorism merge, it is one of the most frightening, chilling scenarios we can ever have. That's why these debates are so serious. That's why we must defeat them now, so we will fulfill, we will fulfill the promise toward the next generation. We have inherited so much because of the sacrifice of others. It is our moral obligation, our duty, to see to it we stop them so we pass on to our children and our grandchildren the gift that was given to all of us. That's it.
And we're going to be facing enemies. We're going to be facing terrorists for a very, very long time. We've got to do everything we can to protect American security and safety, not by taking the longest presidential vacation in 32 years and disregarding presidential daily briefs saying that bin Laden was about to strike in the United States. But it's our values. We have to maintain our values. You know, General Jack Vesey, he was the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said to John McCain about how we're conducting ourselves now, it's unprecedented. torturing, the kind of treatment of the detainees, and he said any information that you might get, even if it's accurate, most of it isn't when you're torturing people, any information you do get will be so far outweighed by the undermining of our moral values and the image of the United States throughout the world. So it's not just refraining from torture, that's a symptom of how we are starting to become like those governments from whom we've always been so proud to distinguish ourselves. That is the greatest challenge we face in terms of maintaining our values.
We now move to the last agenda item, which is a 2-minute closing statement from each of our participants. First opportunity for 2 minutes goes to Sean Hannity.
I just want to reiterate one thing. You know, I will tell you this. This is the serious thought of the night, is the brave men and women that are serving us that are in harm's way. And the only thing I can say, you know, one of the things I really have appreciated how open that all of you in Salt Lake City have been to me and our program on radio and on Fox News. You've opened your heart to me many times as I've been in town, and I want to thank you for that. And thank you for being here tonight. And Mr. Mayor, even though we disagree passionately, I think the free exchange is healthy. I think it's good for the country. I want to say one thing. What I love about Salt Lake is the values that you stand for. You're known as a community of faith, a community of prayer, which I think is the foundation of hope for all of mankind. And I just want to say in closing, I want to run this tape because, you know, I want to give the last word and my word tonight. I was in Iraq and I met the troops and we had this little impromptu town hall meeting, and I think they comment and reiterate how the politics here is hurting them. So I'll give the last word to these guys that I had the distinct honor, privilege, and pleasure of meeting when I was in Mosul, in Iraq.
We all love the truth.
What do you all think of your thoughts on you heard the Secretary of Defense, you hear the President, you know that this is very political back home. What are your thoughts about all that?
Look, we are all soldiers. We serve at the leisure of the President. You know, you can hear what all you want. 99.9% of the soldiers who are on ground have taken a vow and an oath to do this. So we do it armedly. And we're glad to actually do it.
We've had politicians say we can't win this war. You heard John Kerry's comments. You heard John Murtha's comments. You've heard the attacks against the President.
If I sit by those politicians saying that we can't win the war, that to me is telling that they don't have any faith in us. They have no faith in us soldiers. They don't believe in us, and they cannot put their trust in us. This is not a job. In any way, shape, or form, this is not a job. This is a lifestyle. And we choose this type of lifestyle.
Knowing the danger.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the definition of bravery and sacrifice? Mm-hmm. And you do it because why?
Because I want my children and everybody else that lives in America to have the same freedoms that I have.
If I could say one last thing, they're the ones in our hope and prayers tonight and every night. God bless you. Thank you, Salt Lake City, for coming out. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we'll reserve an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I will give you an opportunity to more fully express that appreciation, but at this point, let me provide a 2-minute opportunity to Mayor Rocky Anderson. Mayor Anderson.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us.
And I'll give him more than 2 minutes. You got it.
And thank you, Ken,
This time I won't need it. The greatness of our nation is not a given. It is great because of its history, its traditions, and the values that we, as all Americans, share. Sadly, the greatness of our nation has been severely compromised. We are militarily occupying a country whose citizens have suffered immensely as a result. A nation that posed no threat whatsoever to the United States. We've been led into this unprovoked, devastating war through the deceit and the utter disregard of international treaty obligations. Every day of the United States presence in Iraq, more terrorism, more hatred, more resentment is building against our nation around the world. More people are dying every day. More people are being displaced, and billions of dollars that could help make a better world are being spent to spread more death, misery, and destruction. Wars of aggression, the disregard for solemn treaty obligations, our Constitution and statutory law, kidnapping, disappearing, and torturing people, historic deficits and crippling accumulated debt, listening in on citizens' communications without a warrant, imprisoning citizens without any due process. This is not America. It is not who we are or what we believe in. To remain silent is complicity. To voice our opposition, to put an end to this disastrous presidency, would send such a vital message to the rest of the world and to later generations. It would be the beginning of healing, the reaffirmation of our moral standing, and a return to a democratic, constitutional government that has been a shining beacon to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, one final word as you take your leave this evening. Once again, I want to thank the staff of Kingsbury Hall, Randy Rasmussen, and the entire technical crew for their support. I spend a good deal of my professional career wondering if America cares about the great issues of the times. Tonight, your questions, your involvement, seeing people lined across this entryway to buy tickets the other day for this exchange, all are arguments that the passion and the commitment and the caring are still very much alive. Thank you very much for your time.